Have you ever had a bad night of sleep and the next day your brain just feels off? You can't focus, you're more irritable, you forget things, and even the simple tasks feel harder than they should. It's not just your brain being tired, it's actually your brain being impaired. And the strangest part is you might not even realize it's happening. And I call this next day brain. I'm going to show you what's actually happening inside your brain when you don't get a good night's sleep. And then I'm going to give you some simple actions that you can take starting tonight to avoid next day brain. So the question is there anything we can do to jumpstart our brain so it's working a little bit better even when you don't get enough sleep? Answer is yes. And I'm going to give you some tips. Sleep isn't just rest. Sleep is when your brain, and actually your whole body, resets, repairs, reboots, and recalibrates itself. And when you don't get enough sleep, multiple systems in your body and in your brain begin to break down pretty quickly. And what's happening is that you don't always feel it, but there's some tremendous impact on how you actually feel and how you actually think. So let's go ahead and look at some examples of next day brain. I want to start with memory. Sleep deprivation hits your memory from two different directions at the same time. It prevents you from saving what you've learned yesterday, and it reduces your ability to learn anything new today. And here's how it works. When you experience something new, it goes into a temporary memory system, kind of a holding pen that's in your brain. And then during sleep, your brain replays that memory time over and over again and then stores it into permanent memory so you can actually recall it later. And what happens is when you don't get a good night's sleep, that memory storage system, that replay and store, doesn't actually complete. You experience something, but your brain never saved it. It's just like a Word doc or a Google Doc that you worked on and didn't save it on your laptop. What you did is gone. And what's surprising is that even one night of short duration sleep, 4 to 5 hours, can significantly impair your ability to form new memories the next day. That's tomorrow. All right. So what's the right amount of sleep that you should get? We know from clinical studies that 7 to 8 hours is sort of the sweet spot for your brain and your body to be able to do everything it needs to do to reset and repair itself. All right. So the first thing that sleep deprivation does is it steals your ability to actually create memories. So what can you do to counter this? Well, there is something you can do, and that's to help your brain enter the sleep mode. All right. So no matter how many hours that you have left before your alarm clock goes off, you want to get into that sleep mode as quickly as possible. So here's a pro tip. About 2 hours before your bedtime, put away your devices, your phone, your tablet, your laptop, anything that has a blue screen, all right? And then dim your lights in your room. Make it dim. This works because your brain relies on a hormone called melatonin. You probably heard about melatonin. It's actually a supplement, but your brain naturally makes it. And melatonin is released from your brain in order to be able to shut down and sleep. Now, melatonin will rise in darkness and tell your brain that, yeah, it's kind of sleepy time. It's time to start your sleep cycle. But here's the thing. If you've got light, especially blue light from your phone, tablet, or your laptop, that blue light suppresses the melatonin signal. All right. So your brain still thinks it's daytime and it's raring to go. And it actually has a harder time shifting into sleep cycle, sleep mode. So it's not getting into rest and repair mode as quickly as you want it to. That's actually going to interfere with the amount of good sleep you have, which is then going to interfere with your brain's ability to form memories. Remember what you did today, and then make new memories for tomorrow. Next day brain also can be a problem emotionally because it causes you to be just more reactive. You know what I'm talking about, right? Basically, you get a good night's sleep and your emotions are steady. Without sleep, your brain becomes more reactive, less able to stay calm. Here's how it works. Deep inside your brain is an emotional alarm system, right? It's kind of like a klaxon that goes off, an alarm. And right behind your forehead is a part of the brain that keeps that emotional system in check. So it's a balance. Emotions, hold it in check. Emotions, hold it in check. when you're sleeping well, the part of your brain that's connected to that alarm system helps to keep your emotions under control, right? So you've got more control than emotions. You're calmer, less reactive. But without sleep, watch out. Your calming center and your alarm system aren't well connected. So the calming system isn't working quite as well. Alarm system goes off. And that's why your control over your emotions, when you don't get enough sleep, weakens. You're more reactive and your stress hormones also rise. Everything seems bigger. Everything seems harder to manage. Reading that email is more stressful. That conversation you just had, more loaded. And you feel ready to explode at the least thing. And here's something you might not have thought about. What do you do in the morning when you don't get a good night's sleep? Well, most of us have a cup of coffee. I know I love coffee in the morning, but here's the thing. When you don't get enough sleep and you're more emotionally reactive and you drink that coffee to get that caffeine to kind of wake you up, that's a natural thing to do. Many of us do it, but that caffeine can actually make you even more emotionally reactive. And that's because caffeine that you would get in a cup of coffee or maybe a strong cup of tea blocks a signal in your brain called adenosine. All right, so caffeine blocks adenosine, and adenosine tells your brain how long you've been awake. All right, so over the course of the day, normally, adenosine builds up over the course of the day. And eventually, when you've got enough adenosine built up, tells your brain that you're getting tired, and then you actually go to sleep. So if your brain's already fatigued and then the caffeine is blocking the adenosine, having the caffeine in your system prevents your brain from feeling the fatigue. And now you don't even want to rest up. All right. And it keeps your brain in an even more activated state, which makes the emotional centers more reactive. Right. So you're thinking you're not getting enough sleep. You need your coffee in the morning. What's happening in the chemistry in your brain? The balance is off. So you have less emotional control. You're more reactive. Have some caffeine, keeps your brain on high alert. Now you're even more reactive, right? So the emotional centers become more reactive. The control centers become less effective. So this is what you need to remember if you're pulling a late night. Look, we all pull a late night sometimes. You got to do it. But having a coffee the next day might make you more emotionally reactive, sensitive the next day. Have to deal with that. All right. Up to this point, everything I've told you explains how your brain feels different the next day. But what I'm about to tell you about is even more surprising because I bet you did not know that your brain actually detoxifies itself while you're asleep. Because deep inside your brain, there is a built-in cleaning system, like a sewer system, and it's called the glymphatic system. That's Glymphatic, glymphatic system. And this system actually uses a fluid to flush out toxins and waste products from your brain. The fluid is called cerebral spinal fluid, and it also uses the fluid that's between your cells, interstitial fluid, for cleaning your brain. Now, here's the thing. Your brain produces cerebral spinal fluid all the time. All right. And we're just thinking that it's actually in the spine. Nope. It's all over in your brain. It makes about 500 to 600 milliliters of CSF, cerebral spinal fluid, every day. That's about 2 cups worth of liquid. That's a lot of liquid. And at night, when you are in a deep state of sleep, that space between your brain cells opens up, that sewer grate opens up by as much as 60%. And then this fluid flushes through the brain tissue, mixing with the fluid around your brain cells, and then clears out the waste and the toxins from your brain, like rinsing the dishes and then dumping out the dirty water down the sink. So your brain is literally clearing out waste and getting rid of toxins while you sleep. Now, if you don't get good sleep, that glymphatic system doesn't work as well, slows down, and the toxins and the waste products actually build up. And every day, your brain's actually making these waste products and being exposed to these toxins. So you got to flush your brain out every single day. If you don't, and you don't get enough sleep, it actually, the junk builds up. Now, this is an invisible kind of damage because you're not even going to feel it, but it's actually happening. And your brain winds up the next day carrying more waste, more toxins, and you won't even know it. That contributes to next day brain. The brain hasn't been cleaned and reset yet. So here's the thing. You need to get good, deep sleep in order to get that glymphatic drainage system, the detox system of your brain, working every single night. So how do you do this? Well, actually, here's the tip. exercise can help. Even at 20 to 30 minutes of exercise during the day, just go for a walk for 30 minutes. You don't need to go to the gym necessarily. Go to the gym, it's even better. But 20 to 30 minutes of exercise, physically being active during the day, helps your brain enter deeper sleep at night. And deep sleep is when the lymphatic system works, right? So use your body during the day, exercise your muscles, and at night your brain will more easily shut down and detox itself at night using that lymphatic system. So far, we've covered memory, emotional control, and how your brain actually cleans itself out and detoxes itself during sleep. Now, let's talk about your ability to think clearly. That's cognition, executive function, which you probably can guess is impaired when you have next day brain, right? Even if you feel physically okay, your brain might be a little foggy. Most people have no idea how much getting good sleep affects your brain the next day. If you care about keeping your brain as sharp as you can as you get older, check out my videos. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button. This is where I bring you the breakdown on health and what you can do about it every single week. Okay, now let's talk about energy. Getting good sleep allows your brain to have the energy for sharp, precise, focused thinking. And during the day, your brain uses a lot of energy, okay? As it's using this energy, a molecule called adenosine builds up. Adenosine slows down brain activity, gets you ready for sleep, all right? And it actually makes your thinking brain less efficient. At the same time, the areas responsible for mental focus actually are using less glucose as well. And so you have less energy right where you need it, which is in the thinking part of your brain. So this is what actually happens during the day. Normally, getting good sleep will reset those connections. All right. So everything works smoothly. Without good sleep, those connections are overloaded and brain signaling becomes unstable. It's like having a problem in your car with both your spark plugs and your fuel lines. You're going to have a problem if there's an issue with both. If you want to start your car and run the engine and go for a drive, if both are malfunctioning. So what happens after poor sleep is that your brain performance declines, less energy, less ability to focus, all right? And your body might feel okay, but your brain is not going to be able to make its decisions the right way, and you're more likely to make mistakes. By the way, this is why airline pilots time out when they've flown over a certain number of hours, right? You know, that's probably happened to you at the airport. Your flight gets delayed because the pilots have timed out, and now they got to wait for a new crew to come in or a new pilot to come in. Well, you don't want your pilot to have next day brain, because that means that decision making is not as sharp as it should be. Another time you might have experienced this issue is if you've ever pulled an all-nighter. I pulled plenty of all-nighters in my day, both in college and also in medical school. 24 hours after being awake, your brain is impaired for sure. By the way, they've even measured this to the extent your brain function is so poor, it's operating as if you were intoxicated with alcohol, drunk. All right. Now, we all sometimes have to pull some late nights sometimes, but this is actually just telling you about the consequences of not getting enough sleep, right? And there are biological reasons why this is not a good reason to pull all-nighters all the time and not try to nurture your sleep. By the way, sleep is one of these things that nobody teaches us how to do. We come out of our mom. We crawl up for skin time. We suckle the nipple, and then we fall asleep. Nobody ever teaches us how to sleep, but it's very important if you care about your health to nurture and tend to your sleep. Okay, so the question is there anything we can do to jumpstart our brain so it's working a little bit better even when you don't get enough sleep? Answer is yes, and I'm going to give you some tips. One of the most powerful things you can do, actually, you can do in the morning. Want to guess what it is? You can jumpstart your brain after an evening of not getting enough sleep just with exposure to sunlight, even 10 to 20 minutes of natural light. The sun doesn't have to be shining. Just go outside and go and take a walk. All right, that's enough to begin to reboot your internal clock in your brain. And that helps your brain control its melatonin release, that sleep hormone, so you'll be able to actually sleep better later that night. All right. So that just being exposed to light in the morning helps to reset your brain with the melatonin so that you'll actually be able to sleep later in the day. Now, let's talk about another thing that's affected by next day brain, and that is motivation. Sleep deprivation doesn't just affect how well you think, it also takes away your motivation as well. Okay, here's how that works. Your brain is a system based on a neurotransmitter called dopamine. And dopamine helps you decide whether something feels worth it to be doing, right? So that's basically your brain assessing the effort it takes to do something versus the reward it's going to receive. And when you don't get enough sleep, guess what? Your brain starts to perceive things in a slightly twisted way. Your brain begins to perceive any effort to be higher and the reward to be lower for anything. Man, it's going to take a lot more effort to do that, and I'm not going to get as much out of it. Sound familiar? Well, that's why when you don't get enough sleep, everyday tasks seem a lot harder to be motivated to actually do. You might procrastinate, all right? You might just blow it off altogether. When something doesn't feel rewarding to do, you're just not going to actually do it. And this is more likely to happen to you if you are sleep deprived. Hopefully you're relating to everything that I'm telling you, because we've all experienced problems with our sleep and with our brain function. And I'm just here to give you some explanation for how you felt. And now let's talk about what you can actually do to counter all of it. I got to tell you one more thing though, and that is about your sleep environment. Your brain actually needs the right environment to get good sleep and to stay asleep. All right. And here are some of the parameters that have been studied to help your brain, help your body get good sleep. You want your room to be nice and cool at night when you're sleeping, about 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, look, some people love to sleep in a cool room. Some people like to sleep when it's warm and toasty. I'm just telling you, cool, optimum temperatures anywhere from 60 to 67 degrees. That's optimum for your body to reset itself and get sleep. Number two, you want it to be dark and quiet. So if you've got street lights shining through the window, put up some blinds or curtains. All right, you want it to be cool, dark, and quiet. That will actually help your brain enter deep sleep, and that's where that lymphatic toxin drainage system, that's where it happened, the repair and the reset, your rejuvenation, actually all happens. So when your brain feels off, your memory is not working properly, you feel more emotionally reactive and harder to regulate your emotions, your thinking is less efficient, and you feel less motivated. It's probably not random. You might have next day brain. Ask yourself, how did I sleep last night and the night before? Because getting good sleep helps to restore all of these systems and that actually come from your brain. All right, so simple ways to protect your brain and avoid next day brain. This is what I call the 5-step sleep framework on how to protect your brain with sleep. All right. Number one, at night, dim the lights and put away your screens and your earbuds as well. Number two, cut off caffeine in the afternoon. All right, so that you don't wind up actually keeping your brain awake. Number three, get 20 to 30 minutes of exercise during the day, and that'll actually help you get sleep later on in the evening. Number four, keep your sleep environment cool between 60 and 67 degrees. You choose where in that range. Keep it dark. Close the curtains, pull the shades down, and keep it quiet. All right. If you need to wear earmuffs, do it. Don't listen to anything. Don't listen to music at night. And number five, when you get up in the morning, reset your sleep clock in your brain by stepping outside for 10 to 20 minutes and getting some sunshine. And if the sun's not out, that's okay. Natural light will let you do the same thing. If you get these 5 steps right, you'll be giving your brain exactly what it needs to repair, reset, and perform for you the next day. The difference between feeling sharp up here and feeling off often comes down to how well you slept the night before or the night before that. So you really want to be able to protect that, nurture your sleep. Most people think sleep is just rest, but what you've just learned is that sleep is when your brain actually resets and repairs and protects itself. So if you want to understand how your body and your brain actually work, remember to hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel. This is where I keep breaking down the science behind your health in ways that you can actually put into action. I will see you in the next video. Dr. Lee out. Hey, if you like that video, then you're going to love this one. Check it out.